good data in, good data out when it comes to AI and machine learning.
Have you found that you can prompt the various AIs correctly?
Yeah, so I think I've really put in a lot of inclusive language and inclusive data. You still have to make some tweaks. I've been using ChatGPT for about 2 years, and so it kind of knows me, knows my voice at this point. There's still oftentimes where I'm still like, nope.
Sacha Thompson is the founder of The Equity Equation, a leadership consultant empowering teams to build inclusive, psychologically safe cultures through bold, transformative strategies.
I have named my AI. I'm like, Alan, what are we going to do today?
Okay, great, sure. I mean, Iron Man had Jarvis.
Jarvis, not my idea.
It's fine. I don't see anything wrong at all. It's perfectly fine.
You know, it'd be very interesting to take on more famous personalities that will answer some of the questions that a lot of my clients have on a regular basis.
It would respond the way you wanted it to respond without you having to reprompt it all the time.
AI can definitely do all of the things that you spoke about. Like, there is still that human element. So how do we create environments where that human element is valued and people aren't pushed out the door because...
Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the AI for Business Owners podcast. I'm your host, Jeff Torello. And today I have Sacha Thompson with me, and I'm going to have Sacha introduce herself. Tell us who you are and everything about you.
Ooh, everything. Okay, let's see where I start. So, hi, everyone. Thank you, Jeff, for having me. My name is Sacha Thompson. I am the founder of The Equity Equation, which is a boutique consultancy in the Washington, D.C. area, where we focus on creating inclusive workplaces that center psychological safety. So we want to make sure that everyone within an organization feels valued, seen, heard, and connected.
All right, that sounds pretty cool. I like that concept. How long has that been your focus? How long have you been doing that? When did you start, et cetera?
Yeah, so I started the Equity Equation in 2020, but I've been doing work around like inclusive workplaces, inclusive program development and design most of my career. The last 10 years of my corporate life, I was in the tech industry doing marketing, but I was doing inclusive marketing. So again, making sure that everyone felt valued and seen. Before that, I worked in the nonprofit space. I worked for the company that owns the GMAT test and worked with organizations that focused on underrepresented communities in the business world. And before that, I was in higher education. So some aspect of my life has always touched working with diverse populations and creating environments where everyone feels valued.
It's obviously been a focus for all of your... Yeah, I get you. That makes sense. That's strong.
All of my career.
Yeah, no, that's very strong. Okay. And is there an AI slant to what you're working with and what you're doing? I assume there is, because that's why you're here, but...
Yeah. So it's interesting, so when I worked in tech, the last company that I worked for was Amazon Web Services. And then I was having conversations. So we're talking, goodness, 2017, 2018, around machine learning and AI. Yeah. And the team that I was on, the marketing team that I was on, was public sector. And so we were having conversations back then around AI and machine learning and data sets and bias in data sets and how that impacts underrepresented communities. So I kind of came into starting the Equity Equation with this knowledge of, good data in, good data out, good information out, et cetera, when it comes to AI and machine learning. And so even now, when I'm using AI for anything that I do with my business, I really want to make sure that I have good data going in, and making sure that I am using the voice and the tone in giving additional background information that may be relevant to whatever the output is going to be. So yeah, it's, I blame it on the tech background that I have, but it's been something that I have started to really take hold of, but also understand the limitations too.
Okay. I actually want you to talk about those limitations, but let me just a question that jumped to mind. I wanted to throw it at you. Mm-hmm. Have you found that you can prompt the various AIs correctly to ask for an inclusive sort of response, and it responds that way? Like, what, I'm trying to ask you, right? Is it there, or is there more work needed here? Where is it from your point of view?
Yeah. So I think for the work that I've done, I've really put in a lot of just inclusive language and inclusive data to start. So it wasn't that I always had to, you still have to make some tweaks or understand some historical context for it to make sense. But I'm very diligent in making sure that I'm going in with, hey, here's what I need based on this, 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 and this. So those prompts are much more tailored so that I'm getting that more inclusive response. Now, there have been times where when especially when I was first using, there's a couple of different AIs that I use, but when I first started using some of them where I can tell it was pulling from very general information, um, and saying, okay, yes, this is correct. No, this is not. Look at it from this lens or look at it from this perspective. And it's been able to kind of tweak and monitor. I think I'm at a point now where I've been using, especially ChatGPT for about 2 years, a little over 2 years, and so it kind of knows me, knows my voice at this point.
Sure.
So I'm able to still put that information in there, and there's still oftentimes where I'm still like, "Nope, that's not quite right. Let's look at it from this, 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 and this." But, for the most part, it is doing what I need it to do.
Okay, that makes sense. I would, from the AI agnostics point of view, I would say, asking any generic question, sometimes the model doesn't do what I wanted, and I need to just sort of prompt it into the right direction. And so
Yeah.
I suspected that would be the case for any topic. Are you familiar with the concept of personas with respect
Yes.
to an AI? Okay.
Yeah.
Have you made a persona or maybe even a custom GPT if you're using ChatGPT to embody some of your important tenets that kind of teach the LLM how you want it to operate? Is that a thing you've experimented with?
So it's something I'm starting to look into now. I'm not sure
Okay.
if you are familiar. There's a couple of them out. They actually have these little personalities that are different business aspects of business units within your business.
Okay.
And
Oh, yeah. So like finance or sale. Yeah, I understand. Roles.
different roles,
Yeah,
exactly.
sure.
And so I play with it from that perspective, but because of the work that I do, I am starting to look into creating my own kind of like chat personality, persona
Right.
that will answer some of the questions that a lot of my customers and my clients have on a regular basis rather than, hey, Sasha, do you have X, Y, and Z? I can give it the right information to pull from so that it's the chat bot, right, that's responding. So I am just starting to look into those types of models.
Yeah, interesting. I'm because I'm trying to think about how could I help you get closer with what you want to do. Just a couple quick questions so I can maybe make a suggestion or two. Do you have a decent data set of material from your perspective about how to be diverse, how to change your language? Do you already have that material?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
I have tons of that
Okay.
information. Yeah.
So you could look at fine tuning a model specific to that. Voice is a perfectly valid way of saying it, where the model would get trained to respond in accordance with all of your content. And what you would find is you could just ask any generic question, but because you fine-tuned the model, as long as the fine-tuning went well, it would respond the way you wanted it to respond without you having to reprompt it all the time.
Right.
All right, so that's one option, is go down the fine-tuning route. And this works. One of the previous podcasts, we talked about the difference between fine-tuning and retrieval augmented generation, or RAG. I don't think RAG is the right answer for you because you don't want to talk to your content. You want your content to be embodied
Right.
in a model and have it train it how to talk,
Right.
which is a different answer, and why fine-tuning is a good approach. What I was saying, persona, I'll just clarify a little bit because I'm not sure it completely made sense. As a simple example, let's say that I wanted to ask the LLM a series of business questions, but I wanted to give the LLM a persona to hold on to as I asked it questions. Okay. So I could say, as an example, I want you to be a triumvirate of Steve Jobs, Jack Welch, and somebody else, right? A third person, pick, doesn't matter, Warren Buffett. And I want you to answer as each of those three when I ask you questions. And what you'll find is the training data set for most of these LLMs has enough context that it will answer you like a Jack Welch would or like a Steve Jobs. And you can do this if you wanted to experiment, if you're listening and you want to just test what I'm talking about. Go to any LLM that you want and ask it to talk to you. So you say something along these lines. Pretend you're Albert Einstein and you're giving a lecture to 12-year-olds and explain the importance of imagination in science. And what you'll find is that, first off, the LLM will say things like Liebchen or Mein. It'll just very much be German, which is hilarious, right? But that's the right flavor for that persona. It's totally accurate. And then it'll talk, and I've done this multiple times with different LLMs. The answer is always entertaining. So I really suggest you do it just for the fun. But it really talks about why you'd think a hard science person wouldn't think imagination is valuable. But holy cow, is that not true? Imagination is powerful all the time. But the answer you get, you kind of sit back and you go, that was amazing. How do I get it to do that all the time? Now, obviously, Albert Einstein said, right. Well, what I was getting to you is you could prompt in a persona, and then when you communicate, it would be taking on that persona. So you could say, you're an advocate. Just give it a bunch of really valuable components.
Yeah.
And then when you talk to it, and the reason I'm telling you this, Sacha, is so that you could think about it from this perspective. Let's say you want to create marketing material. You've got a voice. You've got, I'm going to call it a slant because I don't have a better way to describe it with respect to the way you want to frame things so that it comes out the way you need it to come out for, your objectives, right? Okay, fine. If you programmed a persona, you could just say, all right, now give me some marketing content around this, and it would already know how to do the rest of the details that you care about.
It's funny you say that because now it's kind of clicking for me. I had to put my marketing hat back on.
No worries.
There were times where I have said, act as a world-class sales guru.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah,
right?
yeah. That's personas, right?
Right. And how would you speak to this particular product that I have? Or, you are a stressed out middle manager, right? Working for a company that's doing layoffs. How would you respond to X? So right. I have done that before.
Okay.
And in listening to you just now, it's like, it'd be very interesting to take on more famous personalities, right? In that way, or blending to folks that you may not necessarily put together.
Yeah, it's creative. It's very entertaining.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah.
The other thing you can do, I know this sounds a little strange. So this is a thought experiment as opposed to a real data collection exercise. But you can treat the LLM as a focus group and tell it you're a focus group of this age group. You can give it a full demographic and then start asking it questions and see how it answers. Again, it's not like it's a real person. I'm not naive, but it will give you information that you wouldn't have thought of yourself because you're not playing that role necessarily.
Yeah.
And it's going to use all of its training data set to go, how would I answer this if I was this, if I was a Valley girl, if I was a certain, whatever. I don't know, those aren't relevant. But my point is it will give you a different spin and you might learn, oh, wow, I never thought about that. And then you could dig that further, right?
Yeah. And I have done some of that in the past. I think, just as you go back, I was thinking about what you said about fine tuning and, that bringing those two together, I think could open up just a world of possibilities that I probably have been glossing over. Yeah.
And from your point of view, there's a couple ways you could take advantage of that. I'll say it out loud for the podcast audience. I suspect some of these are pretty obvious, Sacha. I'm not assuming you missed all this. But if you had a fine-tuned model, you could then put a chatbot on your website that talked to the fine-tuned model.
Yep.
And you could send clients, maybe you've got a login area, so you only want people who've paid you. Okay, fine. Who could go in and talk with Sacha.
Yep.
When you're not there. Or you could make some of that available as a freebie, as a public relations sort of thing. And here, if you have generic questions about how to appropriately message, etc., here you go. It won't do everything, but it will give them an answer, and it will have an answer trained on your material, your tenets, your view, your what's important to you.
Yeah.
And maybe that's good to be public. I don't, I don't know your business model. I'm not trying to, but like all of that will work
in alignment with what I've been thinking about lately. So yeah, that's spot on.
Great. Okay. Yeah. Cool. Here's an interesting question.
Okay.
If you had the opportunity, right, what would you like AI to do for you? Either you're not sure it can do, or that you haven't spent any time researching. Like, is there something I can help with that's sort of this would be amazing, but you just haven't, pursued it?
Yeah, that's a really great question. Because I'm at the point now, like I have named my AI. Like Alan, what are we gonna do today?
Okay, yeah, great, sure. Iron Man had Jarvis. Everybody has, absolutely, right?
I was just like, hey, AI, Allen Iverson, that's
sure. Okay, Allen Iverson, you got it. All right. It's fine. I don't see anything wrong with it at all. It's perfectly fine.
I went to school in that area. So, I think that, what you said actually is one of the things that has been kind of percolating in my head around creating a model that will answer some of those questions that I get so often that to me, I'm like, oh, well, this is how I would say this, or this is what I would do. But creating a tool that could just do that for a lot of my clients, I think would be fabulous.
Yeah. I'll give you another angle to think through. Again, your business. Maybe one way to deploy that is it's an internal only tool. Maybe an assistant of yours runs. Those FAQs come in, he or she uses Alan, and asks the question, gets the answer, and then provides that answer. Maybe you don't expose it directly to the public. Maybe you keep it as your secret weapon, right? The one thing I'll give you about fine-tuning for you to just have in your head and to maybe plan for, all LLMs have a cutoff date because they have to be trained, and at a certain point, their training must stop so you can use them, right? And then that date is basically their knowledge drops off a cliff. They don't know anything after that. But what you could do is you could think about what of your information is sort of like bedrock,
but
doesn't
evergreen.
Change.
Yeah,
right, exactly. And then as you develop new information, you could do a retraining, say quarterly, and keep the model a little bit more up to date. And the reason I say this to you is because you probably don't have a massive data set. I don't expect you have terabytes of content. That seems unlikely. So what changes is going to be relatively small. And so that retrain won't be outrageously arduous from a time perspective and won't cost a tremendous amount of money. The trick with training, unfortunately, is you need a lot of GPU to do a lot of the work. But, it's usually a one-time cost. So if there's a methodology for you to monetize around it, you can usually find a way to make it make sense. And the cost of training has been coming down over the last 18 months or so. It's not foolishly small yet, but it's in the realm of reasonable for most, even solopreneurs. Like it's totally in the ballpark. Again, if you can monetize it, then you're good to go.
Yeah.
And the reason I bring that up is because I want you to think about, a lot of problems with custom models is they're stale. The minute that they're minted, they're stale, right? Most of the models out there today have been updated. But if you ask, like, let's say the Meta Llama 3 model from last year, if you were to ask it who's the president, the answer would not be the current president because the data cutoff is, it has no idea what happened after that date. Fine. I think most people understand why that answer is wrong. Okay. But if you ask it things you wouldn't expect to be relevant to the cutoff, it can sometimes trip you up and you'd be like, I thought this was the right way to use this prescription, but it changed, those sorts of things. And so that's why models have to constantly be updated and improved. That's why you want to look at the latest models when they come out, those sorts of things. You want to keep the content fresh. It does sound like that fine-tuning might help you out quite a bit.
Yeah, I think so. because like I said, there's quite a bit of information that I have, quite a bit of content that I have. And to your point, my assistant has access, right? So
Right.
she can easily, respond to those questions. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, I look at AIs like this, fine tuning, whatever, as an assistant. But again, it depends on your use case and your business model.
Right.
Whether that should just be directly exposed, whether that should be behind a paywall, or whether that should be just talk to us like normal. But I have, my assistant's doing 90% of the responses. You get a really super complicated question or a really intricate scenario that, needs your expertise and you thinking through and maybe asking, qualifying questions.
Right.
You don't put that on the AI. That's just a waste of effort. But if you do 10% and the rest is done as the rote stuff.
Right. That frees up a lot of my time.
It does. And it frees up time for you to work on growing the business, more clients, doing more talks, whatever the right vector ends up being, more marketing, etc. And still being able to service the customers who are relying on you for good content. Like it gives you a lot of resource.
Absolutely.
A lot of capability.
Absolutely.
Just tell me a little bit. I don't need all the specifics, but like, what is the content that you have? Is it multimodal, like video, podcasts, or all documents? Like, what is it?
It's a combination of everything. So I have a podcast that we have a little over 130 episodes.
Awesome.
There we have lots of downloads, lots of blogs, all of that. I do presentations all the time and speaking to groups.
Okay.
So all of that content is there as well.
Well, here's some really interesting stuff. There's quite a lot of tooling out there that can turn those podcasts into transcripts, and those transcripts can then be ingested as markdown in the model and turned into knowledge. Your PowerPoints and even your images can be broken out and the words can be pulled out. All of that is normal. I've done that for a number of customers. It's pretty common. Where the work happens here, just to help you out, is the data needs to be sort of scrubbed and sanitized. So one of the problems is, let's say you had revisions to, say, a slide deck. And if you've saved at different times, different revisions, and you've changed your what you say, right? So maybe you said it one way and you're like, I don't like the way that works. And you change it over 3 months and you've got a new version and this is the one you want. But if you provide that original document because it's in your, right? So you've got to prune, you've got to clean, you've got to really go through the burden for that primarily relies on you and your assistant because, if I was the AI engineer doing the work, I can't possibly make the determination for you of which presentation's the right one and which one has the old, just no way, right?
Right.
So there's a time investment on your end, but it does pay dividends on the other side.
Yes, the prep. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we use Swell AI for our podcast.
Okay.
And it has been, number one, a game changer in doing the transcripts, doing all the social media posts and everything for it.
Yeah.
And so as I'm listening to you, information that's there, especially if I have a guest that's there that we can capture and feed into a model. So hadn't thought of it from that perspective.
No worries.
Yeah.
I have a different question for you now.
Okay. Switching hats.
I just wanted to have you think about something else a little bit.
Okay.
Do you have any AI-based automation for things like your marketing or your outreach or prospecting, anything like that today?
Not today. Maybe about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I was working with another organization, working with a company that's what they did. They did AI prospecting via LinkedIn.
Yeah, okay.
For us and used, I don't even know what was on the back end, chat bots to kind of respond to.
Yeah, so they were doing outreach, sending messages on LinkedIn, connecting people, et cetera, all from your account, I presume. Yeah. And then you'd get an email link or a Calendly or whatever, and you'd talk to the person, right? Exactly.
Yep.
Okay. And then do you do any automated social media content right now?
A little bit. I do some through Swell, we also use Vizard, so do a little bit through Vizard as well. We've just moved our podcast over to Substack, and they have a little bit in there, but I haven't really leveraged that. Yeah.
The reason I ask is because I wanted to just tell you a little bit about some of the, we'll say, the art of the possible here, just to get you thinking and what have you. It is pretty easy now with a couple different tools. One of them is called Mind Studio, and another one's called N8N, although those are what are referred to as low code or no code environments. But you can hire a consultant to build you a workflow relatively quickly. Don't worry about having to be a developer. The point I want you to hear is I'm going to give you a scenario just so that you can see the capability, and then you can always customize that, right? Let's say you have some particular words or phrases that are very much in your wheelhouse of things you want to comment on, post to your audience, whatever. Okay. You can, create a list of the words that you're interested in or the phrases, right? It can be multiple. You can have a tool that wakes up whenever you want on a schedule. Let's say every morning at 7 a.m. I don't know. Just pick something, right? Goes out and does an AI-assisted search for those topics, those list of words or phrases that are important to you, and finds any content that's been posted on the internet in the last 24 hours related to those words, summarizes them, and brings them back to you in any vehicle that you wanted. In your email, in Slack, in Teams, in whatever, okay?
Yeah.
For you to be able to, maintain knowledge and keep up with what's going on in those particular topic areas. And I tend to recommend folks limit the topic areas, otherwise you get inundated with content.
Yeah.
But, so that's the first part, which is just keep your knowledge up to speed. And, I saw someone talked about, this over here. Okay, great. The next thing is you can add to that a further piece of automation where you can pick one of the articles or more than one and post it to your social media from within the vehicle you're reviewing. So if it was in Slack, each one of those articles could have a button on it that said post to my LinkedIn or post to Instagram or whatever. And you could then put a comment on it if you wanted to and fire it off. And the reason I tell you that is there's a lot of research about the more consistent you are with social media regularly, and I know you already know this, the more value it provides you. But finding the time to be that consistent, another time suck.
Yeah.
But this level of automation can just make that go away. You can also do it completely automated where if you find an article that matches these particular keywords, just post it. And you can have 3-4 posts a day going out to your socials or different socials or whatever you wanted. You're controlling what the content input is, and then out goes the content. I personally use a variation of that, but I use it so that I can stay relevant on a couple topics that I want to make sure I know anything about. From an AI perspective, things change every hour.
Yes.
And then occasionally I throw some of those on LinkedIn because I think it's relevant to share with anybody who's, following me or is like, this guy's posting again, whatever. Doesn't matter. But I wanted you to know that existed because I think sometimes that can be valuable without having to put a lot of effort in.
Right. Yeah. No, I appreciate that. I do, because I pretty much do live on LinkedIn. So I do catch things.
Sure.
But the introvert in me is always not wanting to respond all the time. So yeah, something like that would be helpful.
And you probably have a company page on LinkedIn along with your personal.
Yes.
So what you would do is you put some content posted from the company, some content posted from personal.
Yeah.
And you're not doing anything weird. Everybody does this, right? It's just, right? But having that automated for the most part keeps your consistency up, but doesn't keep the burden on you.
Right.
And it isn't dramatically difficult to set up, but also, like I said, you can find a consultant who bang it out for you pretty quickly.
Yeah.
Yeah. What else? What other fun ideas do you have around AI that I could help with if you got any more? You don't have to have more. I'm just asking.
Yeah, no, I mean, this is helpful right here because like I said, I use it fairly frequently, definitely in the professional space, a little bit in the personal space as well. So just to have another thought partner on what to do about X, Y, and Z. Yeah, no, this is good. I mean, I think I'm just very curious. One of the things that does kind of butt up to the work that I do is there's this fear of, AI taking over a lot of entry level jobs. And so I'm kind of watching, in that space, what's happening. Because though AI can definitely do all of the things that you spoke about, like there is still that human element. And so how do we nurture that human element,
Yeah.
and create environments where that human element is valued and people aren't pushed out the door because the robots are taking over, right?
Yeah, no, it's a fantastic, it's a real concern. And I have 2 points of view, which are somewhat opposed to each other. It's a little strange to have in one brain, but related to this, because on one hand, I think some of what we now see as entry-level positions relate a little bit to, an elevator operator of yesteryear, where probably not a job that needed to be around. Now, obviously, the elevator operators disagree. I totally get it, right? But, there's this potential concept of, okay, well, that job goes away, this job opens up. And that has, at least historically, has happened somewhat regularly. Now, I don't know that it's a one for one, and I wouldn't try to suggest otherwise. But in general, new jobs tend to open up when there's this big sea change of innovation, and that's what we're going through. You could think about it from, the horse and buggy to a car kind of level of the mechanization, the production line. All those things were significant enough. The computer revolution actually made a significant amount of jobs redundant and then created a tremendous amount more jobs, right? And that one, most of us are of the age where we've lived through a lot of that transition, give or take. My daughter hasn't lived through it. She always existed in the computer one, but that's fine. Well, I guess my point is I'm optimistic and looking forward to opportunities that exist as a result of AI, where I do know that there'll be some roles that will go away, but I'm really curious what ones will be created. And I can't currently predict it. I want to be able to, I want to have a list, but I don't have a list. But I really do think, my opinion, that there will be roles that will be generated as a result. And, one of those roles could be, just take it as an example, if you were a copy content creator 3 years ago and you were literally writing, LinkedIn posts or whatever, I think the AI is better at that.
Yeah.
Frankly, right? And a little faster. But maybe that job now turns into some variant of a proofreading role where instead of the person was creating content, I'm making this up, but I'm trying to talk through how the scenarios could play out, right?
Yeah.
I'm not, this is not reality. This is me dreaming. But maybe that turns into, hey, we've got 10 AI content creation agents, and they all create content on various topics with various voices. And I've got a proofreading, editing human who's looking and saying, okay, that's brand standard. That's not. Right now, I know that isn't exactly. It's like one thought.
Like they become subject matter experts, right? Like they're the real eyes that can kind of look through and see the president isn't, so-and-so right now, because
completely agree. Right.
Right. So it shifts, who that is. It's interesting because as you're talking, what came to mind was, there are times and places where I could type in something and just send that over to my client and say, okay, yep, just pay me for that. But what they're paying for is that human element. And so it's, how I facilitate and how I can connect with people one-on-one that you can't get in AI. And those are the skills that often overlooked, right? I call them those power skills, those soft skills that are often overlooked that an algorithm can't fill in those gaps.
The thing I would tell you to look up is a thing called the Gartner hype cycle. It's been around for a long time, right? And it talks about how once there's an innovation, there's this huge peak of expectations about this innovation is going to change the world. And then very quickly following that is this element called the trough of disillusionment, which is a great name. It's a fantastic name. Oh, by the way, it won't do most of the things everyone thought it would do. And following that is what's called the slope of enlightenment, leading to the plateau of productivity. Okay? What this really is talking about is the fact that, when an innovation comes out, a lot of people look at it and go, can I do this with that? Can I do? And they try to fit it everywhere. square peg, round hole. Sometimes it doesn't fit, and that's the trough of disillusionment. But sometimes it does fit. And when it does fit, then people see this expanse in productivity, this new capabilities, these new roles, all of that stuff. What I'll submit to you at the moment is we're sitting right now in the trough of disillusionment with respect to AI. And you can tell that if you just look around at the number of AI projects that are currently failing and the number of, stupid questions people are getting asked or answers they're getting from models, those sorts of things. Like ChatGPT was amazing in 2022. It got so much better in 2023. And in 2024, it's blowing people's minds. Yeah, it's doing a little bad. Whatever. Okay, fine. But this is a cycle, and we should expect that cycle will move forward in time. So what I just want to caution everyone thinking about it right now is we're looking at it, but right now our lenses are not rose-colored. They're like, there's all these problems. Yeah, but the problems get solved.
Yeah. I truly appreciate that, because I think, how my mind works is, okay, what's on the other side of that?
Right.
And
exactly.
And what are you prepared for on the other side of that?
That's the key, because honestly, at a high level, to be really frank with everybody, artificial intelligence is just another way to spell software.
That's it.
Okay, it's just software, right? So now let me get rid of the magic. One of my favorite authors ever, Arthur C. Clarke, most amazing quote I can apply all over the place, but AI is it. And that is, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. And to a lot of people, AI is just magic. Oh my word, right? But we know it's primarily probability theory and math and a little bit of software, right? Okay. What that means, though, is there's a lot of bugs. We're still figuring stuff out. We don't have software. That's fine. We don't have version 3, whatever. But we will. And when we do, a lot of the things we're all dealing with today will go away. And and this is exactly what you're saying, Sacha, what will happen then? What'll that look like?
Yeah.
And preparing for that is where the value is, because that's the long run. That's the long term.
Yeah.
Right now we're on the bumpy road.
It's funny. Yeah. I mean, I think because I was in tech for 10 years and working with developers and working kind of in that space and understanding the mind of an engineer, it is all software. And I'm like, it is until the next big shiny thing happens. Which they're working on now, right? Like it's always this evolution.
To be frank, it's pretty cool software in a lot of ways.
It
does some pretty cool stuff.
That can be done.
Yeah.
The next great big thing is being created now. And so what is that? And what does that look like? And so that is one of the things I do miss about being in the tech industry, because I was always like, ooh, what's the next bright, shiny thing? And
well,
what can I play with?
The other way to frame it from a futurist perspective, if that's a relevant perspective, right? At one point we had, people would yell at each other across the street because that's how they would talk, right? And then we had telephones, and then we had long distance telephones, and then we had transatlantic cables, and then on and on and on. And now we're literally walking around with a massive computational device for communications and everything else in our hands at all times, right? Those are all the standing on giants kind of thing of what came before. Well, instead of worrying about AI today, let's think about what it's going to look like standing on the giants of today shoulders in 5 years, right? Because it's moving super fast. So 5 years is actually a pretty decent amount of time. What are we going to have access to? What roles are we going to have available that no one even knows what, the last thing, I'm belaboring the hell out of this point, but the original word computer was a female. They were the computers.
Yeah.
Right?
NASA.
Right. Completely right. No. They computed and they were excellent at it and better than men. All those things, right?
Yeah.
And then a digital computer is simply saying, hey, we've got a version of a machine that can do what she's doing.
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Where are we going? We're going to go pretty far from there. We started with pencils.
Yeah.
Right?
And chalk.
Yeah, exactly. All right. It's been a pretty fun conversation.
Yeah, it has been. I forgot my whole techie life. a customer support techie. So,
Reawakening. The reawakening.
yes.
All right. Any final thoughts or anything you want to ask or any comments you want to make? Anything that just sticks out as like, oh, I really wanted to get this through?
No, I mean, like I said, this has been invigorating because, again, being in that space for so long, what I have not done is taken the time to think of like that next, like what's next in the frontier of all of this, and how to be prepared. And as someone that works with people leaders that are in this space or that are touching this space, it's how do I help them prepare and not be overwhelmed by the current state, and what are those skills that they will need to be able to manage and deal with now and the future. And so that's kind of where my mind is going right now, and AI can be absolutely be a tool that you can help in that process.
Yeah, I agree.
So yeah, and then help me in my business as well.
Absolutely. Why not? Yeah, I completely agree.
So thank you.
No, thank you. That was fantastic. It was a great conversation. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.